Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Now, for all the serious aspirants waiting to appear for this year's prelims examination, Rao's IAS brings you the third pre-Pareekshan test, and this will be conducted from 10th to 12th of September 2021. So in order to appear for the test, register yourself on the e-learn platform of Rao's IAS. As through this test, you will get your All India ranking, which will help you in analyzing your strong and weak areas with respect to your preparation. And through this test, you will also get a comparative analysis with respect to your score as compared to other candidates in the competition. Further, there will also be a discussion which is scheduled on 13th September 2021 based on the paper appearing for your third pre-Pareekshan. So what are you waiting for? Register yourself on e-learn and do attempt the test scheduled from 10th to 12th of September 2021. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from our UPSC Civil Services examination perspective. So today, let us take up some of the important news which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 7th September 2021. The news to be discussed has been displayed on your screen and time stamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from our examination point of view. Now our first news for discussion is with respect to tribunals. Now this news appears on page number 1, page number 8 and also on page number 12 in the economy section. So the news on page number 1 and 8 are related. It says that fill tribunal vacancies by September 13. Supreme Court tells Centre. The Supreme Court also says that you are testing our patience, and this was highlighted by the Chief Justice of India. Now in similar backdrop, this news on page number 12 says that government must constitute the GST tribunal as per the Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court has said that the government had no option but to constitute the Goods and Services Tax Appellate Tribunal as per the requirement of the GST Act. So looking at both these news, we understand the importance of tribunals not only from the perspective of UPSC syllabus but also from the perspective of previous year's questions. As you can see, questions have been asked by UPSC in 2018 as a 15 marker and in 2019 as a 10 marker. Now the question asked by 2015 was, how far do you agree with the view that tribunals curtail the jurisdiction of ordinary courts? And in view of this above statement, discuss the constitutional validity and competency of the tribunals in India. So it is talking about the constitutional validity and competency of tribunals to try out separate cases. Now you know that various tribunals which have been constituted in India are quasi-judicial bodies constituted under specific laws or constituted under specific statute. For example, the National Company Law Tribunal or NCLT or NCLAT, that is National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, is constituted under the Companies Act of 2013. Similarly, the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission has been constituted under the Consumer Protection Act. For example, TDSAT or Telecommunication Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal has been constituted under the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act. So we understand that these different tribunals are constituted under specific laws or specific statutes, and these specific laws empowers these tribunals to hear specific cases pertaining to the particular sector. So it is in this backdrop the Supreme Court has directed the central government to appoint members and even chairperson to these respective tribunals, or else Supreme Court has stated that it has three options. Number 1, it can shut down all the tribunals. Number 2, it can transfer the jurisdiction of these tribunals to High Court. And number 3, it can appoint members or even chairperson to these tribunals by themselves, that is by the Supreme Court itself. So highlighting the importance of functioning of these tribunals, the Supreme Court has even asked the government that whether it want to completely shut down these tribunals in India. Further, the Supreme Court has even stated that the government is still coming up with laws which the Supreme Court has declared as unconstitutional. So considering all these highlights of Supreme Court judgment, let us understand various problems with respect to the selection process for appointing of members and chairperson for tribunals in India. Now the whole problem here is with respect to executive dominance in selection committee. Now, this means that there is a selection committee which selects the members and chairperson for different tribunals in India. Now, the problem here is that this selection committee has more number of members from the executive as compared to judiciary, and this distorts the balance, and effectively the executive or the central government can has its say with respect to appointing any of the members or chairperson in these tribunals. And this very aspect of executive dominance was declared as unconstitutional, which was highlighted by the Supreme Court in Roger Mathews' case. Now, another problem with respect to this selection committee is the Tribunal Reforms Act of 2021, which the Supreme Court says is also in violation of the Supreme Court judgment. Now, to understand this violation of Supreme Court judgment and also to understand the value of executive dominance, let us go through the Supreme Court judgment of Roger Mathews, and also then we'll try to highlight or understand that how Tribunals Reforms Act 2021 violates the Supreme Court decision, especially with respect to the selection process and provision of members from the executive with respect to the selection committee. Now, before moving further, I would like to highlight that this topic of tribunals, including the constitutionality of these tribunals, has been covered in detail in June 2021 edition of the Focus magazine. So, the point to be highlighted is regarding essentials of tribunals and also the concept of trappings of court. So, as per the Supreme Court judgment, whether to consider a body as a tribunal or not, it says that whether a body is tribunal or not can be decided by applying these several tests. These tests are: it should be a quasi-judicial body, it should be under an obligation to act judicially, it should have some trappings of a court, it should be constituted by the state, and state should confer on it the power to adjudicate upon disputes. Now, the Supreme Court also stated that these criteria are not exhaustive but only illustrative. So, if answer to these tests is in affirmative, then such a body can be said to be a tribunal. Now, with respect to trappings of a court, it includes the following. It means that authority to determine cases initiated by parties, that is, such a tribunal has authority, for example, NGT. It must have a sitting in public. It must have the power to compel attendance of witnesses. It must have the power to examine witness on oath. And at times, it also must follow the fundamental rules of evidence. However, following these rules of evidence is not necessary. Further, it must have provisions for imposing sanctions by way of imprisonment, fine, or damages, and it must have the power to give prohibitory or mandatory orders to enforce obedience. For example, NCLAT or SAT, that is Securities Appellate Tribunal, constituted under the SEBI Act. So these can be said to be some of the essentials of tribunals, and these are some of the aspects of trappings of a court. And to know more, you can go through the June 2021 edition of the Focus magazine, where all these aspects have been covered in quite detail. Now, another point to be understood here is that a tribunal having a quasi-judicial authority can also be established as per an executive order of the central government. So in this case, the best example is the Foreigners Tribunal. Now, the Foreigners Tribunal has been constituted as per the Foreigner Tribunals Order of 1964. And this order of 1964 was issued under Section 3 of the Foreigners Act of 1946. So the question which arose in the case of Abdul Quddus versus Union of India was that a tribunal constituted through an executive order of the central government, whether the decision of such tribunal would be binding. In this case, the Supreme Court held that the Foreigners Tribunal constituted under the Foreigner Tribunals Order of 1964 was very much a quasi-judicial body, and hence the decision of the tribunal was very much binding. So, a tribunal can also be created as an executive order of the central government. And even such tribunals are quasi-judicial body and their decisions are very much binding. So, coming back to the Roger Mathews judgment, here the rules framed by the Government of India under the Finance Act of 2017, especially with respect to the selection process of members of tribunals, was challenged. Now, in this judgment, the Supreme Court declared these rules framed under the Finance Act of 2017 as unconstitutional for being violative of principles of independence of judiciary. So, according to the Supreme Court, it violated independence of judiciary. Next, the Supreme Court also stated that these rules framed by the central government with respect to the appointment and selection process of the members of tribunals was a deliberate attempt to keep the judiciary away. And the Supreme Court held that the search cum selection committee to appoint members of tribunals was an attempt to keep the judiciary away by having more number of members from the executive in the process of selection and appointment of members, vice chairman and even chairman of tribunals. So basically it talked about not only executive dominance but also a deliberate attempt to keep the members of judiciary away from the selection process. Now the court also highlighted another important point. It said that the government or the executive is a litigant party in most of these cases which appear before these tribunal, and hence the aspect of bias cannot be ruled out when the government have more number of members from the executive in the selection process. So it basically means that the government wants to have a ruling in their favor. And based on this understanding that executive is also a litigant party, the court held that members from the executive cannot be allowed to be a dominant participant in tribunal appointments. Now, another concerns expressed by the Supreme Court was that members of tribunals apart from NCLAT were mostly from the central government. And these members were either nominated by the central government or comprised a majority of personnel from the central government. So basically there was a dominance of members from the central government, and this vitiated the entire process of selection of members of the tribunals. Now another aspect highlighted by the Supreme Court was with respect to the balance between members from judiciary and also from the executive. It says that while the selection committee of NCLAT consisted of 2 judges and 2 secretaries, all other selection committees comprised only 1 judge and 3 secretaries to the Government of India. So this basically tilted the balance in favor of the members of executive so that government can have their own say with respect to appointment of members of tribunal, including chairperson and also vice chairperson. And now after this particular judgment, the government has come up with the Tribunal Reforms Act of 2021. And this legislation also provides for search cum selection committee. Now what I'll do is that I'll go through the search cum selection committee consisting of different members of executive and judiciary. And I'll highlight each members from the different branch. So it says that the chairperson and the member of a tribunal shall be appointed by the central government on the recommendation of a search cum selection committee which shall consist of. So this search cum selection committee shall consist of these following members. First, chairperson who shall be the Chief Justice of India or a judge of a Supreme Court nominated by him. So the first member is from judiciary. Second, 2 members who are secretaries to the Government of India to be nominated by that government. So 2 secretaries from the Government of India, that is 2 members from the executive. 1 member who in case of appointment of a chairperson of a tribunal shall be the outgoing chairperson, or in case of appointment of a member of a tribunal shall be the sitting chairperson of that tribunal. Suppose it is from the judiciary. Let's move further. The secretary to the Government of India in the Ministry of Department under which the tribunal is constituted. So again 1 member as member secretary. And next, secretary or the principal secretary of the General Administrative Department of the concerned state as member secretary. Again, now let's see the balance. 2 members here from judiciary and here 4 members from the executive. So this is what the Supreme Court is talking about with respect to executive dominance in search cum selection committee. And because of this, the central government may have its say at every time with respect to appointment of members, chairperson or chairman or even vice chairman of the tribunals. And according to the Supreme Court, this aspect goes against the Supreme Court judgment of Roger Mathews. So this is what the Supreme Court has highlighted in this particular news. Now further, in the Madras Bar Association series case regarding independence of tribunal, the Constitution Bench, which was dealing with the validity and appointment of members of National Company Law Tribunal under the Companies Act, held that the selection committee should comprise of a balance. Now the balance says that a Chief Justice of India or his nominee as chairperson with a casting vote. So the judiciary also having a casting vote. A senior judge of Supreme Court or Chief Justice of the High Court, so 2 members from the judiciary, and 2 secretaries in the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Law and Justice respectively. So we see a balance with respect to 2 members from the judiciary and 2 members from the executive. subsequent Constitution Bench decisions of the Supreme Court in Madras Bar Association case of 2014, Roger Mathews case of 2019, and the decisions of Madras High Court in Shamnad Bashir case have repeatedly held that principles of Madras Bar Association case, which was held in 2014, are applicable to the selection process and constitution of all tribunals in India, basically to ensure balance between members of judiciary and executive in the selection committee of tribunals. Now, since two questions have been asked by UPSC in the past, hence this topic becomes very important. Now, regarding the Supreme Court judgment, since this news is in transition, let's wait for further judgment of Supreme Court and also further decisions of the central government with respect to constitution of these tribunals. With this, let's take up our next news for discussion. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 7. It says, "Spirit of federalism lies in consultation." The article highlights that unilateral legislation on various aspects or various issues such as electricity, port, farm laws, etc., without taking states into confidence will see more protest on the streets. So this article highlights about the growing imbalance between center and states, especially with respect to central government making laws under concurrent list without consulting states. And because of this, we have seen increasing protest by various state governments on various legislations passed by the central government. So this topic becomes important with respect to the aspect of cooperative federalism, whose balance is tilting more towards the center. And if you go through this question asked by UPSC in 2020, it was based on similar concepts. It said that how far do you think cooperation, competition, and confrontation have shaped the nature of federation in India? Cite some recent examples to validate your answer. And this question was to be answered in 150 words. So effectively, this article talks about excessive centralization of power in the legislative process, which overall impacts the rights of states, thereby affecting or impacting the federal balance. So two things becomes important here. Rights of states getting impacted because the center is making laws mostly on issues or entries under concurrent list, and because of this it is also affecting the powers of state, or in other words we can say that through some of these legislations the central government is usurping the power of state government which has been vested to them through various institutions. So in this context, let us go through some of the illustrations with respect to excessive use of concurrent list by the central government. Now this article highlights about 3 examples. One is with respect to the draft electricity amendment bill, the second is with respect to draft Indian ports bill, and third is with respect to the farm laws. Now we all know that some of the states including West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, etc. have raised their concerns against the draft electricity amendment bill which has been initiated by the central government. Now this topic was discussed in detail in the DNS dated 22nd August 2021, where we not only discussed about the proposals under the Electricity Amendment Bill of 2021, but also the concerns raised by states and certain opposition members. Now, most of the states with respect to draft Electricity Amendment Bill are raising their concern with respect to involvement of private sector for power transmission. Now, regarding taking away states' power or state government's power, this article highlights about National Selection Committee proposed under the Draft Electricity Amendment Bill of 2021. Now, this National Selection Committee will make appointments for State Regulatory Commission. Now, so far, appointments to state regulatory commissions have been made by the state government. So, overall, it is the jurisdiction of the state. However, through the National Selection Committee, the central government will have the power to appoint members of State Electricity Regulatory Commission. And through this committee, they can appoint their own members to the SERC, thereby controlling the powers of state. Further, this article also mentions about the establishing of centrally appointed Electricity Contract Enforcement Authority, which shall be the sole authority to regulate issues of sale, purchase or transmission of electricity in the state. And hence through these institutions, the central government will have more control over the state institutions. And this is what the state is protesting against, as it indicates growing centralization of Indian federalism. Now the second example highlighted in this article is with respect to the draft Indian Ports Bill of 2021. Now this article says that according to the Indian Ports Act of 1908, it empowered the state governments to regulate and control non-major ports of India. However, the draft Indian Ports Bill proposes to transfer this power of the state government to the Maritime State Development Council. Now, appointment to this council will be done by the central government, and hence aspects relating to transfer, planning, development and regulation of non-major ports will effectively controlled by the central government through the Maritime State Development Council. So here again we see taking away powers of the state with respect to planning, development, regulation, etc. of non-major ports has been transferred from state government to central government. And lastly, the author highlights about the farm laws on which number of protests have already been witnessed. Now this article says that essentially agriculture has been provided under entry 14 of state list, but the farm laws were enacted by the central government under entry 33 of the concurrent list. And we know that entry 33 of the concurrent list does not specifically provide for agriculture, but rather provides for trade and commerce. So it is in this regard the article says that if doctrine of pith and substance is applied to the farm laws, then it will be clear that these laws are regulated as per entry 14 of state list and not as per entry 33 of the concurrent list. And here when we talk about reconciling the laws with respect to the respective entries, then we will find out that entry 33 of the concurrent list does not specifically allows for farm laws. So this article says that through excessive use of concurrent list, taking away power of the state governments not only impact the federal balance as envisaged by the Constitution of India, but it will also lead to increased protest by respective state governments. And it is in this backdrop there is a need to implement important recommendations of Sarkaria Commission and also that of National Commission to review the working of the Constitution. So the Sarkaria Commission in its report has highlighted that there should be a coordination of policy and action in all areas of concurrent or overlapping jurisdiction, and this coordination must be done through a process of mutual consultation and cooperation, which must be a prerequisite for a smooth and harmonious working of the dual system. So it talks about a coordination of policy and mutual consultation and cooperation between center and states. Sarkaria Commission in its report further stated that the Union government, while exercising its power under concurrent list, must limit itself to the purpose of ensuring uniformity in basic issues of national policy and not more. So the Union government must restrain itself with respect to use of concurrent list and must also ensure that powers of the state are not usurped. Further, the National Commission to review the working of the Constitution had recommended that individual and collective consultation with the state should be undertaken. So it talks about individual along with collective consultation. And this individual and collective consultation with the states must be undertaken through the Interstate Council established under Article 263 of the Indian Constitution. So these are some of the important recommendations of Sarkaria Commission and National Commission to review the working of the Constitution, which mentions about coordination of policy and mutual consultation and cooperation between center and states, and also individual and collective consultation with the states as per Article 263 of the Constitution, which provides for the constitution of Interstate Council. Thus, this article with respect to increasing use of concurrent list by the central government without consulting states and also taking away states' power becomes important aspect of federal issues and challenges pertaining to federal structure of the Indian Constitution. And hence, it becomes very important from our mains perspective, as we can see that question has been asked by UPSC in the past. So in this regard, this aspect of excessive centralization of power in the legislative process impacting rights of states, thereby impacting federal balance, becomes an aspect of concern. So with this understanding of this article, let's take up our next article for discussion. The next news to be taken up appears on page number 10. It says, Manda buffalo gets unique breed tag. And this tag has been provided by the National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources, that is NBAGR. Now the Manda buffalo has been categorized as the 19th unique breed of buffaloes in India, and it is found along the Eastern Ghats mainly in the Koraput region of Odisha. Now, Manda buffaloes has been considered as a unique breed of buffaloes in India because it is resistant to parasitic infections, it is less prone to various diseases, and can also thrive on modest resources. So, this news becomes important particularly from the perspective of prelims, particularly geography, as questions can be asked with respect to the Manda breed of buffaloes and also why they have been registered as unique breed of buffaloes in India, which institution has registered it, and where this buffalo is found in India, mainly in the Eastern Ghats and also in the Koraput region of Orissa. Now, the ICAR, or Indian Council of Agricultural Research, National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources, has identified Manda and also Dharwari breed of buffaloes as unique breed of buffaloes found in India. And in this regard, we need to know about the mandate and aims and objective of ICAR, National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources. So it highlights about its mandate, which is basically identification, evaluation, characterization, conservation, and sustainable utilization of livestock and poultry genetic resources in India. Further, its mandates also includes coordination and capacity building in animal genetic resources management and policy issues. So these can be said to be the mandate of ICAR NBAGR. Now, from mandate, let's move to the objectives. Now, one of its main objective is to conduct systematic survey in order to characterize, evaluate, and catalog the genetic resources of farm livestock and poultry. And this cataloging of genetic resources further helps the institution in creating a national database with respect to these genetic resources. Further, the institution designed various methods for ex situ conservation, that is, conserving these livestock and poultry outside their natural environment, and also in situ management and optimal utilization of farm animal genetic resources. Its other objective is to undertake studies on genetic characterization using modern biological techniques. These techniques include molecular cytogenetics. Now, this involves structural and functional organization of chromosomes, genome variation among these livestock and poultry feeds, and also to identify various abnormalities of the chromosome, which is also done using the method of DNA fingerprinting, that is, comparing different genetic codes of these livestock. And last objective of this institution is to conduct training programs with respect to evaluation, characterization, and utilization of animal genetic resources. So these can be said to be the objectives of National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources. Now, as we have already discussed, that the ICAR, National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resource, has recently decided to register two new breeds of buffalo, mainly Dharwari and Manda buffalo, as unique breed of buffaloes. Now, we have already discussed about the Manda buffalo, which is mainly found in the Koraput region of Orissa. Now, the body color of these buffaloes is ash grey with copper colored hairs. And Dharwari buffalo, as the name suggests, is mainly found in the northern part of Karnataka, particularly in districts such as Dharwar, Belgaum, and Bijapur. Now, this particular graph highlights about the livestock population as per 2019, and among the share of major species include cattle at 35.94%, that is almost 36%, followed by goat at 27.8%, then followed by buffalo at 20.45%, followed by sheep, and then by pig. And the major states for livestock population are Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, and Bihar. So this topic becomes important primarily from your prelims perspective, and question can be asked in your prelims examination with respect to geography and also science and technology, especially regarding the various methods utilized by NBAGR for ex situ conservation and in situ management and optimal utilization of farm and animal genetic resources, and also to undertake studies on genetic characterization and using modern biological techniques. Now, I've highlighted about the important indigenous buffalo breeds in India, which you can go through in the PDF. These includes Murrah, Surti, Jafrabadi, Bhandavari, Neeli Ravi, Mehsana, Nagpuri, and Toda. Thus, this topic becomes important mainly from your prelims perspective. Now, moving to the last two articles, which I will discuss as a part of reference. Now, this particular article appears on page number 6. It says, a Taliban-led Afghanistan and the Chinese conundrum. the US move of vacating Afghanistan, a nation vital for the Belt and Road Initiative, may prove costly for Beijing. So this article talks about the impact of withdrawal of US forces from Afghanistan and eventual establishment of Taliban regime on Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. So as such, the article discusses in detail about the purpose behind Chinese investment in Belt and Road Initiative and how Taliban regime in Afghanistan, which is a crucial link for Belt and Road Initiative, will prove costly to China. But the important point to note here is that the article does not talk about its direct or indirect impact on India or India's relation with either China or Afghanistan. Now, this article does not directly fit in the syllabus of UPSC with respect to India and its neighborhood relations, and the issues of Afghanistan, Taliban, and India's relation with Taliban and even Afghanistan has been discussed in previous DNS. So what you can do is to go through previous DNS which has discussed the issue of US leaving Afghanistan and also its implication on India and also India establishing a formal relationship with Taliban. And here you can also go through the DNS dated 22nd July 2021 where Mangals are discussed about India should directly engage with Taliban too. Further, this topic was also discussed recently on 29 July 2021 on the issue of Afghanistan and Taliban. Now this particular lead article appearing on page number 6 says the long and short of national monetization pipeline. It says that it is surprising that the government has avoided mentioning the consequences of asset monetization on ordinary citizens. Now this topic has been discussed in detail by Jatin sir on 27th August 2021. As you can see, he discussed about national monetization pipeline, important terms in the news, challenges related to the national monetization pipeline, challenges related to infrastructure financing, government initiatives and other way forwards. So to understand more about national monetization pipelines and its various constraints and challenges, you can go through the DNS dated 27th August 2021. So with this, let's take up our question for the day. Now based on our discussion, this becomes your practice question for the day. It says, consider the following statements. First, Constitution 42nd Amendment added Part 14A on tribunals in the Indian Constitution. Second, tribunals in India can either be created under a statute or by an executive order of the central government. Third, decisions of the tribunals are binding as they have the trappings of a court. Question is, which of the statements given above are correct? Options are A, 2 only, B, 1 and 3 only, C, 1 only, and D, 1, 2 and 3. Now coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was, consider the following statements regarding Nipah virus. First, it is a zoonotic virus, meaning it has been transmitted from animals to human beings. Yes, this is correct. Second, the Nipah virus is known to spread far more slowly than SARS-CoV-2. Yes, this is also correct. So the question was, which of the statements given above are correct? So the correct answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. So with this, we come to an end to today's analysis of the Hindu newspaper. Thank you for watching DNS.